Vivian Okafor Wells was standing in front of a house in Cordova, Tennessee that she had never lived in. Her name was on the mortgage. Her social security number was on the application. Her credit score, 780, built over 22 years without a single missed payment, had been used to secure a $280,000 loan she never signed for. Her daughter did that 10 years ago, in one afternoon. She did not know it yet, but the woman behind that door was about to lose this house. Not because of the police, not because of a court order, because of something her mother was carrying in a manila envelope that Shanice Okafor Wells never expected to see. The front door was dark brown, stained wood with a brass knocker that had gone dull from weather. The porch had a rocking chair pushed against the railing, a pair of children's rain boots beside it, yellow with frogs on them, size 6. From inside the house, Vivian could hear a television, a cartoon, something with high voices and bright sounds leaking through the screen door into the afternoon heat. The air smelled like cut grass and warm concrete and the faint sweetness of magnolia from the neighbor's yard. Tennessee, in late September. Still hot enough to sweat, standing still. Vivian was standing still. She held the manila envelope in her left hand. It was thick. The clasp was bent from being opened and closed too many times over the years. She had carried this envelope in her work bag for 10 years. Every day. To the warehouse and back. She never opened it at work. She never showed it to anyone. She just carried it. The way you carry something you are not ready to use but refuse to put down. She looked at the mailbox at the end of the walkway. White metal, slightly tilted. The name printed on the side in stick-on letters. The kind you buy at a hardware store. V. Okafor Wells. Her name. On someone else's house. She had driven past this address 4 times in 10 years. Twice in the first year after she found out. Once, 3 years later, when she was driving through Cordova for a work delivery, and the GPS routed her past it. Once more, 6 years after that, on purpose, parked across the street for 11 minutes, and then drove home without getting out of the car. This was the 5th time. She was out of the car. She was on the porch. She was close enough to hear her granddaughter's cartoon through the screen door. She reached for the doorbell. Her finger stopped an inch from the button. She pulled her hand back. She looked down at her shoes. Black leather, scuffed at the toe, the left heel worn down from the way she leaned when she stood at her station at the warehouse. She wore these shoes 6 days a week, had worn them for 2 years. The sole was separating from the upper on the right foot. She had glued it twice. She read the name on the mailbox again. V. Okafor Wells. She did not ring the bell. She did not leave. She stood there the way only a woman who has waited 10 years to do something can stand. Completely still, completely certain, completely terrified. She had rehearsed this moment for a decade. She had not rehearsed what would happen after the door opened. That part she would learn, in real time. Vivian Okafor Wells grew up on Gill Street in South Memphis. Her parents came from Lagos in 1978. With 2 suitcases and a name nobody in Tennessee could pronounce on the first try. Her father drove a cab. Her mother cleaned offices downtown, the kind with marble floors and elevators that played music, and came home every night, smelling like pine sol and floor wax. They rented a 2-bedroom house with a kitchen so small that only one person could stand at the stove at a time. Vivian's mother cooked every evening after work. Jollof rice, egusi soup, fried plantains. The smell filled the whole house and leaked out through the window screens into the street. The neighbors on Gill Street knew when Aduni Okafor was cooking because the whole block smelled like pepper and palm oil and home. Vivian learned to cook beside her mother. She learned other things too. How to iron a uniform so the creases were sharp enough to see from across a room. How to show up early. How to leave a place cleaner than you found it. How to keep your word, even when nobody was checking. She learned about credit when she was 17. Her father sat her down at the kitchen table with a bank statement and a yellow legal pad and explained it like a lesson. "Your name is all you have in this country," he said. "Your credit is your name on paper. If your credit is clean, doors open. If it is not, you stand outside." Vivian opened her first credit card at 22. A Capital One card with a $500 limit. She used $40 of it per month and paid it back in full before the due date. Every month. For 22 years. She never carried a balance. She never missed a payment. She never co-signed for anyone. Her credit score climbed the way things climb when you are patient and careful and nobody is working against you. 580. 640. 700. 740. 780. She married Terrence Wells at 24. He was 26. Army Reserve. Worked at the FedEx hub in Memphis, loading cargo onto planes at night. Broad shoulders, quiet voice. The kind of man who fixed things around the house on Saturday mornings without being asked. He proposed with a ring he had been paying off for 11 months at a jewelry store on Poplar Avenue. They rented a house on Pendleton Street. 3 bedrooms, a yard with a chain-link fence, and a persimmon tree that dropped fruit every October. Shanice was born when Vivian was 28. Kezia came 4 years later. Terrence was diagnosed with lung cancer at 34. Non-smoker. The doctors said it was environmental exposure from his time at the base in Fort Campbell. He did not argue with the diagnosis. He did not rage against it. He went to treatment on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and came home and sat in the kitchen and watched Vivian cook, and told her the food smelled good, even when the chemo made everything taste like metal. He died when Vivian was 36. Shanice was 8. Kezia was 4. The Army paid for the funeral. The life insurance was $50,000. Vivian put $30,000 into savings and used $20,000 to cover the gap between the funeral costs the Army paid and the costs the Army did not. She kept the house on Pendleton Street. She kept the kitchen table where Terrence used to sit. She kept the 4th chair at the table, even though nobody sat in it anymore. That was his place. She went back to work 2 weeks after the funeral. Warehouse supervisor at Medline Distribution, a pharmaceutical supply company on Lamar Avenue. $48,000 a year. 6 days a week. Early mornings. She dropped Kezia at daycare at 6:15 and was at the warehouse by 6:45. She picked both girls up at 5:30. Cooked dinner. Helped with homework. Put them to bed. She did this alone. Every day. For 18 years. The house on Pendleton Street was small but clean. The kitchen had yellow walls. Vivian had painted herself. The refrigerator had photographs held by magnets. Shanice at her 8th grade graduation. Kezia, in a school play dressed as a sunflower. Terrence, in his army dress uniform standing in front of a flag. The dining table had 4 chairs. 3 occupied, 1 empty. Vivian told her daughters the same thing her father told her. Your name is all you have. Your credit is your name on paper. Do not let anyone touch it. Shanice heard it. She heard it every time her mother said it. She just did not believe the same version of it her mother believed. Shanice wanted different. Not better. Different. She was not ashamed of Pendleton Street. She was not ashamed of the warehouse, or the rented house, or the kitchen with the yellow walls. She loved her mother. She respected her mother. But she looked at the life her mother had built, and saw a woman who had worked 6 days a week for 18 years, and still did not own the house she lived in. Shanice wanted ownership. She wanted a deed with her name on it. She wanted a yard that was hers, not a landlord's. She wanted to stand in a kitchen and know that the walls and the floor and the roof above her belonged to the person standing in them. She was 26 when she went to a first-time homebuyer seminar at the public library on Poplar Avenue. A Saturday afternoon. Folding chairs, a projector screen, a table with pamphlets and a bowl of mints. The speaker was Darnell Price, a mortgage broker with a company called Shelby Home Finance. Polished shoes. A smile that came easy and stayed too long. Darnell explained the basics. Pre-approval, down payment, debt-to-income ratio, credit score requirements. The number he kept coming back to was 620. That was the floor. Anything below 620. And the conversation did not start. After the seminar, Shanice approached the table. She asked Darnell what a person would need to do if their score was below the floor. He asked her how far below. She said 520. He looked at her for a moment. Then he said something that sounded like advice but was not. You know anybody with a score that works? He did not say use somebody else's identity. He did not say steal. He handed her a question and let her fill in the answer herself. She filled it in. She filled it in that night lying in bed looking at the ceiling of her apartment on Raleigh-LaGrange Road, thinking about the house she wanted, and the number she did not have, and the person she knew who did. Vivian's filing box was in the bedroom closet on the top shelf. Manila folders organized by year. Tax returns. Social security card. Birth certificate. Bank statements. Vivian had kept everything in one place because she was organized and because she had no reason to hide it. Nobody in her house was a threat. Nobody in her house had ever taken anything from her. Shanice helped her mother prepare her taxes every year, starting when she was 19. She sat at the kitchen table with the receipts and the W-2 forms and the laptop and filed everything through TurboTax. She knew her mother's social security number by memory. She knew her date of birth, her full legal name, her employer identification number, her bank routing number. She knew all of it because Vivian had trusted her with all of it. She drove to Pendleton Street on a Wednesday afternoon. Vivian was at the warehouse. Shanice used the key hidden under the third flower pot on the porch, the one with the dead basil that Vivian kept meaning to replant. She went to the bedroom. She opened the closet. She took the filing box from the top shelf and placed it on the bed. She opened it. She took her phone out. She photographed every document inside. Social security card, birth certificate, most recent tax return, bank statement, credit card statement with the account number visible. She put each document back in the same order. She closed the box. She returned it to the top shelf. She straightened the bedspread where the box had pressed into it. She walked through the house, checking that everything looked the way it did when she came in. She locked the front door. She put the key back under the third flower pot. She drove home. It took Shanice 35 minutes to copy her mother's entire financial identity. Vivian would not find out for 3 years. And when she did, it would not be Shanice who told her. 3 years later, Vivian's transmission failed. The mechanic at Midas on Lamar Avenue looked at it and told her the repair would cost more than the car was worth. She needed a different vehicle. She went to her credit union on a Tuesday morning and sat across from a loan officer named Denise, with a nameplate on her desk and a photograph of twin boys behind her computer monitor. Vivian filled out the application. She had been a member of this credit union for 14 years. She had never missed a payment on anything. She sat in the chair and waited while Denise typed and clicked and typed again. Then Denise stopped typing. She looked at the screen for a moment. She looked at Vivian. "I'm sorry, Miss Okafor-Wells. Your application has been declined." Vivian did not understand. She asked why. Denise turned the monitor slightly. Credit score. 480. Vivian looked at the number. She looked at it the way you look at something written in a language you do not speak. The number did not belong to her. She had checked her credit 8 months earlier, and it was 780. She said that. Denise said the system was showing a different number. Vivian asked what had changed. Denise read from the screen. There was a mortgage, $280,000. Opened 3 years ago. Property address, in Cordova, Tennessee. Vivian had never been to Cordova. She had never applied for a mortgage. She had never signed a loan document for a house she had not seen. She asked Denise to repeat the address. Denise read it again. Vivian wrote it on the back of a grocery receipt she pulled from her purse. She asked Denise to repeat it one more time. Same address. Same numbers. Same name on the loan. She did not raise her voice. She did not ask how. She said thank you. She stood up. She walked to her car in the parking lot. She sat in the car for 25 minutes. The engine was running. The air conditioning was on. She did not drive. She held the receipt in her right hand and looked at the address written in her own handwriting. 6 digits and a street name, and a city she had never had a reason to visit. A woman walked past the car carrying a Walgreens bag and a child on her hip. She glanced at Vivian through the windshield and kept walking. Vivian did not notice her. She was looking at the receipt. Tina. She was looking at the handwriting. Her handwriting. The same handwriting that had signed every tax return, every lease, every permission slip, for 20 years. Now it was writing down an address she should not have needed to write down. An address that should not have existed, with her name attached to it. She looked at the receipt one more time. She folded it in half. She put it in her purse next to the grocery list she had written that morning. Eggs, bread, laundry detergent, normal things. Things from a morning that still made sense. The receipt did not belong next to those things, but she put it there anyway. Then she put the car in gear and drove to Cordova. The drive took 35 minutes. She took I-240 east to Highway 64. She did not turn on the radio. She did not call anyone. She drove the way she drove to work, every morning, both hands on the wheel, eyes on the road, except this time she was driving toward a house she had never seen that belonged to her name. The house was on a quiet street in a subdivision called Autumn Ridge. Ranch style. Beige siding with brown shutters. The lawn was green and recently mowed. The driveway had a silver Nissan Altima parked at an angle. The garage door was closed. A white mailbox stood at the curb with the flag down. Vivian parked across the street. She did not get out. She read the name on the mailbox from where she sat. V. Okafor Wells. Block letters. The kind you peel off a sheet and press onto metal one at a time. Her name. Her initials. Her last name hyphenated, exactly the way she had hyphenated it on her Social Security card when she married Terrence at 24. She sat in her car across the street from a house that had her name on every document and someone else's life behind every window. She did not know whose life that was. Not yet. She would find out soon, and when she did, the address on the receipt would become the least painful part of what she was about to learn. Vivian did not go to the police. She did not call a lawyer. She went home and sat at the kitchen table, and opened her laptop, and searched for identity theft, protection services. She chose one that cost $19.99 per month. She entered her credit card number and waited for the report to generate. The report came back in 4 hours. It confirmed what the credit union had shown her. A mortgage of $280,000 opened in her name, using her Social Security number, her date of birth, her employment history, her credit profile. The application had been submitted through a brokerage firm called Shelby Home Finance. The contact email listed on the application was shanice.wells.home@gmail.com. Vivian read the email address on the screen. She read it again. She closed the laptop. She put both hands flat on the table. She sat like that for a long time. She did not call the police. She did not call Shanice. She picked up her phone and called Kezia. The phone rang 3 times. Kezia answered the way she always answered. "Hey, Mama." Vivian did not say hey back. She did not say anything for a moment. Kezia heard the silence, and the silence changed something in her voice. "Mama?" Vivian said she needed to ask her something. She said it calmly. She said it the way she said everything. Then she told Kezia what she had found. The mortgage, the address, the email. Kezia did not respond right away. The pause was long enough for Vivian to hear her daughter breathing on the other end. Then, Kezia said something Vivian was not prepared to hear. Mama, I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago. Kezia had known for 2 years. She had known since Shanice moved into the house in Cordova and invited her over for dinner and walked her through every room. The way someone walks you through a house they are proud of. The kitchen with the granite island, the backyard with the new fence, the nursery they were setting up for the baby. Kezia had asked how she could afford it. Shanice smiled and said, I figured out how to make it work. Kezia did not ask what that meant, but she noticed the mail on the counter. 2 envelopes addressed to V. Okafor Wells, their mother's name, in their sister's house. She picked one up. She turned it over. It was a bank statement. She put it down before Shanice came back from the nursery. She did not mention it. She did not ask about it that night. She did not ask about it the next time she visited either. She carried the question with her for 2 years, the way you carry a stone in your pocket. You know it is there. You feel the weight of it every time you shift your weight. But you do not take it out because you are afraid of what you will have to do once you look at it closely. Kezia was not a liar. She was not a thief. She was a 24-year-old woman who loved her mother and loved her sister and could not figure out how to protect one without destroying the other. So she said nothing. And saying nothing had a cost. It had a cost she did not understand until she heard her mother's voice on the phone saying the words credit score and mortgage and Cordova, and heard the silence between each word. Vivian listened to everything Kezia said. She did not interrupt. When Kezia finished, Vivian was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Thank you for telling me." She hung up. She sat at the kitchen table that night with a credit report on the laptop screen and a grocery receipt with an address on it, and the knowledge that one daughter had taken her name and the other had watched it happen. She could no longer trust either of them the way she had trusted them that morning. That was the part that hurt more than the credit score. The score was a number. You could fix a number. You could not fix what it meant when the person who stole it shared your blood and the person who kept the secret shared your kitchen table every Sunday. Vivian drove to Cordova the next morning. She did not call ahead. She parked in the driveway this time. Not across the street. In the driveway, behind the silver Altima. She walked to the front door carrying the manila envelope. She knocked. Not the doorbell. Her knuckles on the wood. 3 times. Shanice opened the door. She was wearing a gray sweatshirt and leggings. Her hair was pulled back. She looked at Vivian first. Then her eyes dropped to the envelope. They stayed there for 3 seconds before she looked back up at her mother's face. She knew. Vivian could see it. The recognition that travels across a face before the mouth has decided what to say. "Can I come in?" Vivian said. Shanice stepped aside. Vivian walked through the foyer and into the kitchen. She looked around. Granite countertops, a double-door refrigerator with a water dispenser, recessed lighting, a window above the sink looking out onto a backyard with a wooden swing set and a sandbox covered with a blue tarp. Her granddaughter's swing set, bought with money borrowed against a name that was not Shanice's to use. Vivian placed the envelope on the kitchen island. She opened it. She took out the credit report. She took out the mortgage application. She took out the printout of the email address linked to the loan. She laid each one flat on the granite. She pointed to the social security number. She pointed to the name. She pointed to the email. Shanice did not look at the papers. She looked at the counter. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said. Vivian did not move. She did not repeat herself. She stood there. Shanice shifted. "I was going to refinance it into my name before you ever found out. I had a plan." Vivian still did not move. Shanice's voice changed. "You never would have helped me if I asked. You would have said we can't afford it. You would have told me to keep renting, to wait, to be patient, the way you always do." Vivian looked at her daughter. She waited. "You spent your whole life renting," Shanice said. Her voice was louder now. Not yelling, but the kind of loud that comes when someone has run out of excuses and only has anger left. And you want me to do the same thing. You never wanted more for yourself, and you didn't want more for me either. The kitchen was quiet after that. The refrigerator hummed. Outside the window, the swing set moved slightly in the wind, even though nobody was sitting on it. Vivienne let the silence sit for a moment. Then she spoke. One sentence. I spent my whole life making sure my name meant something. You spent one afternoon making sure it didn't. Shanice did not have an answer for that. Vivienne told her she had 90 days. 90 days to refinance the mortgage into her own name. To remove Vivienne's social security number from every document attached to this house. If she did not, Vivienne would file a report with the police and the Federal Trade Commission. Shanice stared at her. You would send your own daughter to prison? Your granddaughter's mother? Vivienne did not blink. You would steal from your own mother to buy a kitchen island? She said it standing in the kitchen that her credit score had paid for, looking at the granite that her social security number had financed, listening to the swing set her name had purchased creak in the wind outside. Neither of them spoke after that. Vivienne gathered the papers. She put them back in the envelope. She walked to the front door. She did not hug Shanice. She did not look at the swing set again. She walked to her car. She drove home with the folder on the passenger seat. She did not turn on the radio. She did not call Kezia. 90 days. Shanice did not refinance. She could not. Her credit score was still 520. No lender would approve her. She had 90 days to do something she could not do in 3 years. So she did the only thing she knew how to do when she could not solve a problem with paperwork. She called the family. The first call went to Aunt Claudette in Jackson, Vivienne's older sister. Claudette had raised 5 children and buried a husband, and believed that family problems stayed inside the family the way dishes stayed inside the kitchen. You cleaned them yourself. You did not call strangers. Claudette called Vivienne that evening. Vivienne, I heard what's going on. You really going to do this to your own blood? Over a house? Vivienne listened. You know that girl has a baby. You know what happens to young black mothers in the system. You want that for your granddaughter? Vivienne listened. Uncle Raymond called the next day. Terrence's brother. He said, Family handles family business, Viv. You don't bring the law into this. That's not how we do things. Vivienne listened. Cousin Marcus from Nashville called on a Friday night. Auntie Viv, I love you. But you know what happens to black women in the system, right? You want Shanice to have a record? Over money? You want Amara growing up visiting her mother on weekends behind glass? Vivienne listened. She listened to every word Marcus said. She noticed he did not say Shanice was innocent. None of them said that. Not Claudette. Not Raymond. Not Marcus. They all said the same thing a different way. What Shanice did was wrong, but what Vivienne was about to do was worse. As if protecting herself was a crime, and being stolen from was not. Each call followed the same pattern. Someone told her what she should feel. Someone told her what a good mother would do. Someone told her that forgiveness was the same thing as silence, and that protecting yourself was the same thing as destroying your family. She listened to each one the way she listened to rain on the roof. It made noise. It did not change her plans. On day 41, a letter arrived. Not from Shanice. From a lawyer representing Darnell Price. The letter did not apologize. It did not acknowledge what Darnell had done. It said that Mr. Price was prepared to testify that Vivienne Okafor Wells had verbally authorized her daughter to use her financial information for the purpose of securing a home loan, and that any claim otherwise was a family dispute, not a criminal matter. Vivienne read the letter twice. She folded it. She put it in the manila envelope with everything else. The envelope was getting thick. It had started with a grocery receipt. Now it held a credit report, a mortgage application, an email printout, a list of phone calls from relatives, and a letter from a lawyer threatening to make her the villain in a crime committed against her. Darnell Price had helped 6 people in Shelby County use someone else's identity to qualify for loans they could not get on their own. Vivian did not know that yet. She would learn it later when the investigation went wider than her kitchen table. But right now all she knew was that the man who had put the idea in her daughter's head was now preparing to call her a liar under oath if she went to the police. She did not call a lawyer. She did not respond to the letter. She did not tell Kezia about it. She put the envelope on the kitchen table next to the salt shaker and the napkin holder and the photograph of Terrence that had been sitting there since 2006. She looked at it. Day 87. 3 days left. The folder was sitting in front of her. The house was quiet. The kitchen table had 2 chairs now. Kezia still came on Sundays, but she sat in a different seat than she used to. She never sat in the one closest to the window anymore. That was the one she had sat in before Vivian found out she had known. Vivian looked at the folder. She had not opened it in weeks. She did not need to. She knew everything inside it the way she knew the route to the warehouse. From memory. Without looking. She had not changed her mind. Vivian Okafor Wells had never been the kind of woman who changed her mind because someone raised their voice. Day 91. Vivian drove to the police station on Poplar Avenue. She parked in the lot facing the building. The glass doors reflected the parking lot back at her. She could see herself in the glass. A woman sitting in a beige Honda with a manila envelope on the passenger seat and 22 years of credit history that no longer belonged to her. She sat in the car for 12 minutes. Not because she was unsure. She had been sure since day 58. She sat because she wanted to remember this. The parking lot. The glass. The afternoon light hitting the building at an angle that made the bricks look almost orange. She wanted to remember exactly what the world looked like at the moment. She chose her own name over the comfort of pretending everything was fine. She picked up the envelope. She got out of the car. She walked through the glass doors into the lobby. Fluorescent lights. A row of plastic chairs bolted to the floor. A woman behind the counter with a lanyard around her neck and a computer screen in front of her. Vivian placed the envelope on the counter. "I need to report identity theft." The woman looked at her. "Do you know who did it?" "My daughter." The woman paused. Not from surprise. From recognition. She had heard this before. In Shelby County and across the country, identity theft by a family member accounts for roughly 1 in 10 cases. Most of them are never reported. The ones that are reported usually come in just like this. Quietly. With a folder. And a face that has already done all the crying it is going to do. The woman slid a form across the counter. Vivian picked up the pen attached to the clipboard by a thin chain. She filled in her name, her address, her social security number, the number she had protected for 22 years, and that someone else had used in 35 minutes. She reached the line that said, "Suspected perpetrator." She wrote, "Shanice Okafor Wells." She reached the line that said, "Relationship to victim." She wrote, "Daughter." She signed the bottom of the form. Her name, the same name that was on the mortgage she did not take out. The mailbox she had never touched. The credit report that had been destroyed while she was at work, sorting pharmaceutical shipments on Lamar Avenue. The same name that had been on Shanice's birth certificate 29 years ago, when Vivian held her for the first time in a hospital room at Methodist, and whispered the name she had chosen into her daughter's ear. The same name. But this time she was signing something she chose to sign. Something that said, "This name belongs to me, and what was done with it was done without my permission, and I am not going to pretend otherwise to make anyone comfortable." She handed the form back. The woman behind the counter took it without comment. She gave Vivian a case number written on a yellow receipt. Vivian put the receipt in the envelope with everything else. She walked out into the afternoon. The sun was still up. Memphis was still moving. Cars on Poplar. A man walking a dog on the sidewalk. A woman pushing a stroller across the crosswalk. Nothing outside had changed. Everything inside her had. 5 weeks later, 2 federal agents and a Shelby County detective knocked on the door of the house in Cordova. Kezia heard about it from a neighbor before the end of the day. She called Vivian that evening. "Mama, they took Shanice." Vivian was standing at the kitchen counter. She was holding a dish towel. She did not put it down. She stood there with the towel in her hand and the phone against her ear. A long silence. "I know," she said. The investigation moved quickly once it started. Identity theft, using a stolen social security number across state banking systems, is a federal crime. The FBI field office in Memphis opened a case. They pulled the mortgage records. They pulled the email. They pulled the brokerage paperwork from Shelby Home Finance. That is where the case got wider. Darnell Price had not just helped Shanice. He had run the same place 6 times in Shelby County over 4 years. 6 different clients, 6 different family members, whose identities were used without consent. A nephew, a cousin, a stepfather. An elderly aunt in a nursing home who did not know her name was on a condo in Germantown. And Shanice, the only one of the 6 who had used her own mother. The other 5 had chosen people they saw occasionally. People at a distance. People whose mail they could intercept without being noticed. Shanice had chosen the woman who raised her. The woman who cooked her dinner every night for 18 years. The woman who told her every day of her life that her name was all she had. Darnell Price lost his mortgage brokerage license. He was charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and identity theft. He did not get to testify that Vivian had consented. The 5 other cases made that defense impossible. Shanice was charged with identity theft and mortgage fraud. The bank called the loan $280,000, due in full. She could not pay. She had never been able to pay. The house in Cordova went into foreclosure. The beige siding, the brown shutters, the white mailbox with the peel-on letters, the granite kitchen, the swing set in the backyard. All of it sold at auction for $212,000 to a couple from Bartlett who had no idea what the previous owner had done to get it. Shanice lost her job. The company she worked for as an office manager ran a background check after the arrest and terminated her the following Monday. No hearing. No appeal. A letter in her employee file and a box of desk items left at the front desk. 4 years of showing up early and staying late. And none of it mattered once the charge appeared in the system. Jamal took Amara to his parents in Nashville. He did not file for divorce right away. He just left. He packed 3 suitcases and the car seat and drove east on I-40 without saying when he would be back. He did not say goodbye to Shanice. He said goodbye to the house. He stood in the kitchen and looked at the granite island and the double refrigerator and the recessed lights, and shook his head once, and walked out the front door. Shanice watched from the window of the house that was no longer hers as her husband loaded their daughter into the back seat and pulled out of the driveway for the last time. She moved to a studio apartment on Fraser Boulevard. $475 a month. 1 room, a bathroom, with a shower stall and no tub. A window that faced the parking lot of a check-cashing place. Shanice had spent 3 years living in a house built on her mother's name. Now she had no house. And the only name on the police report that mattered was the one she had stolen. 7 years passed. Vivian did not call Shanice. Shanice did not call Vivian. Aunt Claudette stopped calling after the first year. Uncle Raymond stopped calling after 6 months. Cousin Marcus never called again. The family that had pressed Vivian to stay quiet went quiet themselves once the federal charges became public record. Nobody called to say she had been right. Nobody called to apologize for what they had said. They just stopped calling. Silence from every direction. There was no argument to continue. There was no conversation to finish. There was just silence. The kind that fills a house so completely, you stop noticing it, the way you stop noticing the hum of a refrigerator. It is always there. You just learn to live inside it. Kezia called every week. Sunday evenings. She talked about work, about her boyfriend, about the apartment she moved into in Midtown. She did not mention Shanice unless Vivian asked. Vivian never asked. Vivian rebuilt her credit the way she had rebuilt everything else after Terrence died, one number at a time, 1 month at a time, without asking anyone for help. Year 1. She filed disputes with all 3 credit bureaus. She submitted the police report. She submitted the FTC affidavit. She submitted 14 pages of documentation proving she had not applied for the mortgage, had not signed the documents, had not lived at the address. The bureaus took 6 months to begin removing the fraudulent accounts. Credit score, 510. Year 2. The mortgage was officially removed from her record, but the damage was still there. Late payments that had posted before the fraud was confirmed. Collection notices that had hit her file before the investigation cleared her name. Credit score, 580. Year 4. She had paid every bill on time for 48 straight months. She had opened a secured credit card with a $300 limit and used $30 of it per month, and paid it back the same way she had done when she was 22 years old, starting over at 50. Credit score, 640. Year 6. She was promoted to regional warehouse manager. $58,000 a year. She bought a car. A used Honda Accord, 2018, $14,000. She qualified for the loan on her own name, her own credit, her own signature. She sat in the finance office at the dealership and signed the paperwork, and nobody told her she was declined. Credit score, 710. Year 7. She moved to a better apartment in East Memphis. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a window that looked out onto a row of crepe myrtles that bloomed pink every June. The dining table had 2 chairs, one for her, one for Kezia, who came every Saturday for dinner. The 3rd and 4th chairs were gone. She had left them behind when she moved. She did not replace them. The refrigerator had 3 photographs held by magnets. Kezia, at her college graduation. Kezia's son, born 8 months ago, in a blue onesie. And Terrence in his army uniform. The same photograph that had been on every refrigerator Vivian had owned since 2006. There was no photograph of Shanice. Credit score, 735. 7 years of rebuilding what took one afternoon to destroy. 7 years of silence that was not hatred, it was survival. Vivian did not owe anyone forgiveness on a timeline she did not choose. She owed herself the right to heal at her own pace. And she had. 7 years. Then Kezia called on a Thursday evening and said 4 words that changed the math of everything. Shanice is in the hospital. Vivian was washing a plate at the sink. She turned the faucet off. She dried her hands on the towel hanging from the oven handle. She stood with the phone against her ear, and the kitchen quiet around her. Kezia told her. Chronic kidney disease. Stage 4. Shanice needed dialysis 3 times a week. She had been going to the clinic on Thomas Street for 2 months. She did not have insurance. She had lost her coverage when she lost her job, and had not been able to get Medicaid because her legal situation complicated everything. The applications went in circles. The paperwork came back with questions she could not answer without a lawyer she could not afford. She was living in the same studio on Fraser Boulevard, to $475 a month, alone. Jamal had not come back. Amara was 10 now. She lived in Nashville with her father. Shanice saw her once a month when Jamal drove her down on a Saturday. Sometimes twice. Sometimes not at all. Kezia paused. I thought you should know, Mama. Vivian did not say anything. She asked about you last month, Kezia said. First time in 7 years. Vivian was still standing at the counter. What did she ask? Kezia was quiet for a moment. She asked if your credit score was fixed yet. The kitchen was silent. The clock on the wall above the stove ticked. The crepe myrtle outside the window moved in the wind. The refrigerator hummed behind her. That question. Not, is Mama okay? Not, does she hate me? Not, does she ever talk about me? Not, can I call her? She asked about the credit score, the thing she broke, the thing she knew she broke, the thing her mother had spent 22 years building and she had destroyed in a single afternoon at a closet in the bedroom on Pendleton Street. It was the only language she had for the thing she actually wanted to say. She could not ask, "Have you forgiven me?" because she did not know if she deserved to ask it. So she asked about the number, because the number was concrete. The number was something you could measure. And if the number was fixed, maybe that meant something else was fixable too. Maybe it meant there was still a door she could knock on. Vivian understood that. She understood it the way only a mother can understand the thing her child is actually saying, underneath the thing her child actually said. "What's the address?" Vivian asked. Kezia gave it to her. Vivian pulled a yellow sticky note from the pad on the counter. She wrote the address down. She stuck the note on the refrigerator, next to the photograph of Terrence. She did not say she would go. She did not say she would not. "Thank you for telling me," she said. She hung up. She put the phone face down on the counter. She looked at the address on the note. The handwriting was hers. The same handwriting that had written another address on a grocery receipt 10 years ago, in a credit union parking lot. 2 addresses. 2 pieces of paper. One led to a house she did not buy. The other led to her daughter. She looked at the note for a long time. She looked at the photograph of Terrence next to it. She wondered what he would have done. She did not know. He had been dead for 18 years. She had stopped asking that question a long time ago. She was the one who was here. She was the one who had to decide. She did not go that night. She did not go the next night either. 3 weeks later, Vivian drove to Fraser. She took Watkins Street north past the Walmart and the gas station, and the check-cashing place with the neon sign that buzzed even in daylight. The houses got smaller. The yards got wider. Mobile homes behind chain-link fences. A liquor store on the corner with bars on the windows and a hand-painted sign that said, "Cold beer." Children playing on the sidewalk in front of a house with no front steps. Just cinder blocks stacked where the steps used to be. She turned onto Fraser Boulevard and pulled into the parking lot of a 2-story building with brown brick walls and metal staircases bolted to the outside. The staircase on the left was rusted at the joints. The railing wobbled when she touched it. The hallway on the second floor smelled like cigarette smoke and bleach, and something underneath both that she could not name. She stopped at door 2B. The paint was peeling around the edges. The number had fallen off at some point, and someone had written it back on with a black marker. The B was larger than the 2. She knocked 3 times, the way she had knocked on the door in Cordova 10 years ago. Knuckles on wood. She waited. From down the hallway she could hear a television playing through a closed door. Someone cooking. The smell of oil heating in a pan. A child somewhere in the building laughing and then stopping. She heard footsteps inside. Slow. The kind of slow that comes from a body that is tired in a way sleep does not fix. The lock turned. The handle moved. The door opened. Shanice stood in the doorway. She was thinner than the last time Vivian had seen her. 30 pounds thinner at least. Her hair was natural and cut short. Her skin had the grayish undertone that comes from dialysis, from the machine pulling the blood out and cleaning it, and putting it back 3 times a week. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants. She was 36 years old. She looked 45. She looked at Vivian. Then she looked at her hands. Both of them empty. No manila envelope. No folder. No papers. Just hands. "You came," Shanice said. "I came," Vivian said. Shanice stepped aside. Vivian walked in. The studio was 1 room. A twin bed pushed against the wall with a comforter that had been washed so many times the pattern had faded to shadows. A small table next to it with 5 prescription bottles lined up in a row. Cyclosporin, phosphate binder, iron supplement, blood pressure medication, anti-nausea. The labels faced outward like she had arranged them, so she could read them without picking them up. A window looked out onto the parking lot and the check-cashing place across the street. The blinds were plastic and bent in 3 places. The kitchen was not a kitchen. It was a counter with a hot plate and a mini refrigerator and a single shelf above the sink, with 2 plates and 2 cups. No granite island. No double refrigerator. No swing set. No white mailbox with peel-on letters. No backyard. No Amara. You have been listening long enough to know both of these women. You know what one of them took. You know what the other one rebuilt. But standing in that room, a room smaller than the kitchen of the house that was bought with a stolen name, the question of who owes what to whom is not a math problem anymore. It is a human one. Vivian sat on the only chair, a folding chair with a cushion on the seat that had gone flat. Shanice sat on the edge of the bed. The distance between them was 5 feet and 10 years. Shanice spoke first. She did not apologize. Not yet. She told the story. Not the version she had told Aunt Claudette. Not the version she had told herself. The real one. She said Darnell told her she could have a house if her credit was right. She said she knew her credit was not right. She said she knew her mother's was. She said she drove to Pendleton Street on a Wednesday, while Vivian was at the warehouse, and used the key under the flower pot, and opened the filing box in the closet, and photographed everything inside. She said she thought she could refinance the mortgage into her own name within 2 years, before anyone noticed, before anyone checked, before anyone sat in a credit union office and heard a number that did not make sense. I thought I could fix it before it mattered, she said. It mattered the day you opened my filing box, Vivian said. Shanice looked at the floor. She kept talking. She told Vivian about losing the house, about losing the job, about Jamal packing the car and driving to Nashville with Amara in the back seat, about the studio on Fraser Boulevard, about the dialysis clinic on Thomas Street 3 times a week, about sitting in a chair for 4 hours while the machine cleaned her blood because her kidneys had stopped doing it on their own. She told Vivian about Amara. She's 10 now, Shanice said. She lives with Jamal's parents in Nashville. I see her once a month, sometimes twice, sometimes not at all. She paused. She looked at the wall. There was a photograph taped there with a piece of Scotch tape, a school picture, a girl in a blue shirt with braids and a smile that looked like Terrence. Vivian saw it. She did not say anything about it. She calls Jamal's mother Nana, Shanice said. She calls me Shanice now. She said it the way you say something you have said to yourself so many times it no longer makes you cry. It just sits there. A fact. Like a credit score. Like an address. Like a name on a mailbox that belongs to someone else. Vivian listened to all of it. She did not interrupt. She did not nod. She did not look away. When Shanice finished talking, the room was quiet. The blinds moved slightly from the air vent above the window. The prescription bottles stood in their row on the table. Vivian asked one question. When you photographed those documents in my closet, did you think about me at all? Shanice was quiet for a long time. Then she said no. She looked at her hands. I thought about the house. Vivian did not flinch. She did not look away. She sat with that answer the way she had sat with everything else in the past 10 years. Completely. Still. I spent 22 years building a credit score, Vivian said. You destroyed it in one afternoon. I was denied a car loan because of what you did. I was denied an apartment because of what you did. I sat across from a woman at a bank and had to explain why there was a $280,000 mortgage in my name at an address I had never been to. I had to say those words out loud to a stranger who looked at me like I was lying. Do you know what that is like? No, Mama. I spent 7 years fixing what you broke. 7 years of letters and phone calls and forms and disputes and payments on a debt I did not create. I rebuilt my credit from 480 to 735. I did it alone. The same way I raised you. The same way I buried your father. The same way I did everything. Shanice did not speak. The room was quiet again. A car horn sounded in the parking lot below. The blinds moved. The prescription bottles stood still. Then Shanice said 3 words. I am sorry. She did not explain. She did not add anything. She did not say but. 3 words. The first time she had said them, in 10 years. Vivienne looked at her daughter. She looked at the prescription bottles. She looked at the room. She looked at the woman sitting on the edge of a twin bed in a studio apartment on Fraser Boulevard who had once stood in a kitchen with granite countertops and a swing set in the backyard, and a name on the mailbox that did not belong to. Here. I'm here, Vivienne said. That's what I have right now. I don't know if I have more than that. She did not say I forgive you. She did not say I don't. She said I'm here. 2 words that are not forgiveness and not rejection and not a promise. Just presence. The hardest thing to offer someone who hurt you. Harder than anger. Harder than silence. Harder than a police report. They sat in that room for 2 hours. They did not solve 10 years in 2 hours. Nobody does. But for the first time in a decade they were in the same room. And neither of them left. Vivienne drove home on I-240 West. The highway was quiet. The sun had gone down somewhere between Fraser and East Memphis, and the sky was the color of a bruise, fading out along the edges. She did not turn on the radio. She did not call Kezia. She drove with both hands on the wheel, the way she always drove. The same way she had driven to Cordova 10 years ago, with a grocery receipt on the passenger seat. The same way she had driven to the police station on Poplar Avenue, with a folder full of evidence. The same way she had driven home tonight with nothing in the passenger seat but her purse, and a silence that felt different from the one she had carried for 7 years. She parked in her spot at the apartment complex. She walked up the stairs. She unlocked the door. The apartment was dark. She turned on the kitchen light. The table had 2 chairs. The refrigerator had 3 photographs. The sticky note with Shanice's address was still there, next to Terrence. She opened the kitchen drawer, the one next to the sink. Inside was the manila envelope, the same one she had carried to the house in Cordova 10 years ago. The same one she had placed on the granite island. The same one she had taken to the police station on Poplar Avenue. The clasp was bent. The edges were soft, from years of handling. She took it out. She held it for a moment. She did not open it. She knew everything inside it. The credit report, the mortgage application, the email printout, the police report, and the letter from Darnell Price's lawyer. 10 years of paper. She put it back in the drawer. She closed the drawer. She did not throw it away. She did not burn it. She did not tear it up. She put it back. Because some things you do not destroy even after they stop being weapons. They become records. Evidence that you went through something and came out the other side. Evidence that you stood at a counter in a police station and wrote your daughter's name in a box marked "Suspected Perpetrator" and signed your own name below it, and walked out into the Memphis afternoon and kept going. She opened the refrigerator. She took out a container of leftover rice and beans. She heated it in the microwave. She ate standing at the counter because she had been sitting for 2 hours in a folding chair in a studio apartment on Fraser Boulevard, and her back was stiff. The apartment was quiet. The credit score was 735. Her name was on every bill in this apartment, every lease agreement, every piece of mail on the counter, every utilities account, every insurance document, all of it hers. Not stolen, not borrowed. Not given. Earned. Vivienne Okafor Wells, 54 years old, standing in a kitchen in East Memphis, eating rice and beans from a container. Her name on everything around her. Everything she had rebuilt from 480 to 735. From a folding chair at a credit union to a signature at a car dealership. From a police report on Poplar Avenue to a sticky note on the refrigerator. She had not forgiven Shanice. She had not decided she never would. She had done something harder than both. She had shown up. Some people steal what they can count. A social security number, a credit score, a mortgage. They take the parts of you that fit on a form, and they use them to build something for themselves. They never think about what they cannot steal. The 22 years it takes to build a score from nothing. The 7 years it takes to rebuild it after someone destroys it. The weight of writing your own daughter's name on a police report. The silence of a kitchen table, with 2 chairs instead of 4. You can steal someone's name. You cannot steal what the name cost them to build. If this story made you think about someone who protected their name when nobody else would, send it to them. Not because they need a story, because they need to know that choosing yourself is not the same as losing your family. Here is the question. If your own daughter used your name to buy a life she could not afford, and you spent 7 years rebuilding everything she destroyed, would you knock on her door when she got sick? Or would you let the silence do what silence does? Leave your answer below, because this one is going to split every family watching. Subscribe. See you in the next one.